So let's spice up some of those lower level Dungeons and Dragons monsters. Now, every edition of D&D has had the challenge of taking the players from the lower levels, level 1 to 3, 1 to 5. Lower levels slid a little bit depending if it was AD&D, Red Box, 3.5, 3.x, 4, 5, and I'm sure the next edition of D&D will re-image that a little bit. But if we look at lower levels like 1 to 3, 1 to 4, mid-levels 4 to 6, higher levels 7, 8, and then moving up from there, it was always a little bit of a challenge where the characters were level 1 adventurers and they needed some experience and they needed to develop. And you used the lower levels to do two things, in my opinion, as a dungeon master. Start building the characters, start giving them some gear, start letting them gain powers, level up, work together as a group, but also introducing the game setting in a way that they could understand and utilize. Now, D&D, there's a lot of combat. Roll for initiative. Orcs, goblins, certain low-level monsters were common to encounter at the lower levels. I mean, you pull off some of the classic modules for levels 1 to 3, there's going to be goblins, there's going to be orcs, there's going to be hobgoblins, gnolls, although they're a little bit more powerful from that perspective. But in exploring these low-level monsters, if you've played D&D a number of times, you're like, okay, like I get it. We got to go through the lower levels and just beat on some orcs and explore the Caves of Chaos again to level up. At least they made jumping from levels 1 to 3 quicker, so we don't have to go through this again and again. From that perspective as a DM, we got to spice things up. We have to realize that there's a whole environment and system in D&D. The monsters aren't just like hanging out in the dungeon waiting for the players. They're going throughout their lives, their power struggles, their structure. So playing these encounters, we want to just play them more than stat blocks. Now, the current edition of D&D 5 kind of used the lower level monsters and monsters in general as stat blocks to chew through. But again, that doesn't mean we can't spice things up. So the first thing I bring in, of course, is variety. If we're looking at orcs, if we're looking at goblins, there's going to be a leader, a war boss or a big boss. There's going to be various specialized troops, meaning goblins with missile weapons might use crossbows, might use slings. Orcs might use bows and other things. There might be a champion or two who has slightly better gear and armor, right, in the tribe or the battle group. So that right there is one way, the initial way you start spicing up these lower monsters. Don't just throw 10 goblins. Throw here's 6 of the basic core type, but then maybe some long-range missile-type weapons and maybe a big boss or a little boss to lead it. Well, then we've got magic. I mean, magic is tech in D&D, whether it's divine or arcane. Unless you're running a super kind of low-level type world where magic is not common or doesn't exist, that's like on every D&D corner. So it only makes sense that there might be a shaman or a cleric or a sorcerer. Add in some magic. Look, the players are going to throw magic at you. Throw magic back at them. Tailor it, custom it, make it appropriate and themed, and it will build that encounter even more. So if you have that variety and you have kind of a leader and you've got some magic and you've got some mixed weapons, maybe some goblins in the tree or at higher position shooting, all of a sudden these stat blocks be fighting back. All of a sudden they've got some bite. All of a sudden the party's like, wait, this is not just auto win, roll for initiative, collect the XP. We've got to go through this. We've got to have some tactics. The other thing that I utilize is pets. Pets. They're going to work together. Could be something as simple as an attack type monster or something a little bit more exotic. They could share a lair with other types of monsters. You could have goblins riding spiders. One of the tricks that I used at the lower levels, kind of going to the mid levels, I had a player. I mean, this was my fault, but I was okay with it. Whenever I play D&D, if you sit at my table, you can play any character class that you want. I want you to have ownership of your character. I want you to have agency. I want that to be literally your avatar on the table. So Absolutely anything goes. Well, I've played with some metagamers who were all just about the power, and we were starting a Forgotten Realms campaign. This was in D&D 3.5. Starting a Forgotten Realms campaign. We're going to go to like level 15, 16. I mean, literally, we're going to play it out probably for like 8 months, 9 months, maybe a year. A lot of opportunity. So in planning the characters, even at the lower level, this one player was like, I'm a first level rogue who's like half fae, moon, elf, this, that, like just crazy stuff where at level 1, it was like, translate that for me, bro. Okay, well, 3 times a day I can go invisible. When I hide in invisibility because of my fae ability, I'm non-detectable. I've got a plus 17 before I even roll a d20 to my stealth. I have this, I have that. I'm like, I can't even touch you in combat. Oh, I'm also jacked up for sneak attack, where at level 1, I get plus 3d6 sneak attack instead of the 1d4. I'm like, how? Well, I pulled in this tome. I did this. I took this feat, which opened up this. I'm like, you're only level 1. It was all legit. Now, in all fairness, D&D 3.5 was just an absolute disaster mess. This was towards the end of the life cycle when we knew a new edition was coming. So he was pulling in a bunch of sources, completely good. So now I'm in an interesting place because we didn't have challenge ratings back then. I'm throwing lower level monsters because we had a party of 8 players. But this one player is just auto winning. I mean, he's really kind of just destroying everything. So how do I handle that? Well, they were clearing out some goblin caves, which again, to give them some XP, to give them some gear. And of course, that was the vehicle that delivers the mysterious note and the plans that point to somewhere in the forest, Castle Bane, which is a ruined castle. And obviously something's going on there, which is then going to feed back to the attacks on the caravans as they head to Northgate City, right? It's setting that whole phase. Well, this goblin tribe, they had befriended, charmed, obtained, who knows, a basilisk. And they kept it in the throne room, kind of behind this secret door. So as they're fighting through the goblins, they noticed that the goblins, they were well equipped because they were well funded by Castle Bane. So they had kind of generic leather armor. I mean, not great, but it was standardized. Their weapons were kind of rusted and a mess, but they had some swords rather than just kind of like clubs and spears. They were a professional goblin type army. They're chewing through the goblins, and they make it to the throne room, and they notice that all of the goblin team members in the throne room have these kind of hoods that they can pull over, and they don't even have like eye slots or the ability to see. Literally, it's like a hood. One of the players speaks Goblin or understands Goblin, and the Goblin war boss is like, hoods. So they all pull down these hoods. So now we have a round or two that they're blind fighting. The goblins are trying to hit, so there's penalties and stuff. The party thinks it's a great joke. My meta friend, he's chewing through everything. They're like, look at these goblins. Big goblin war boss hits that button on the throne. Secret door opens up. Basilisk comes out, pissed off. Well, now you know why they're wearing hoods. So I say that because you can utilize some specialized pets. Just come up with a reason why they have it. Or you don't even need a reason. You're the DM. And it's working, right? I could just say the basilisk going crazy and just trying to turn anything and everything to stone. My friend did not have an answer for that. In all fairness, I planned this way before, but this was supposed to be like an end thing. They were supposed to get there like at level 3. They're there at like a few XP into level 2. So spicing up these lower level monsters, lots of ways to do it. Don't just throw 10 orcs and chew through the stat block. Organize, get motivated, get creative as a DM, and use that as a lower level encounter to really, really challenge the players.